They told us the Victorian era ended in 1901. They told us it disappeared with corsets, candlelight, and horse-drawn streets. But what if that wasn't true? What if Victorian England didn't vanish at all? What if it quietly crossed the Atlantic, changed its accent, and settled into American homes? Because the rules that shaped women's silence, obedience, and restraint didn't disappear. They were repackaged, renamed, and passed down, mother to daughter, right here in the United States. Tonight, we're uncovering the uncomfortable truth most history books never explain. Victorian England didn't end. It moved to America. And once you see it, you'll never look at American womanhood the same way again. If you value serious history, not noise, not outrage, but stories that explain who we became, consider subscribing. This channel is built for people who still believe the past matters. America loves a clean story. A story where we broke free from Europe, where we rejected old customs, where we became modern, bold, and independent. But history is rarely that neat. When millions left Victorian England for America in the 1800s, they didn't arrive empty-handed. They brought trunks. They brought Bibles. They brought manners. And most importantly, they brought rules.
Rules about how a woman should speak, how she should sit, what she should tolerate, and what she should never say out loud. America didn't erase Victorian values. It absorbed them and renamed them morality. Here's the mistake people make. They imagine control as loud, as violent, as forceful. Victorian power was none of those things. It was quiet. It lived in expectations, in social shame, in fear of being labeled improper, in fear of being alone. A Victorian woman didn't need chains. She had standards. She was taught that obedience was virtue, silence was dignity, endurance was femininity. And when those women came to America, or raised daughters who never saw England, those lessons stayed. They were no longer called Victorian. They were simply called the right way to be. Look at early American homes. The parlor wasn't a casual room. It was a stage. Women were judged there, not loudly, but constantly. How they poured tea, how they sat, how much emotion they showed, how quietly they listened. Men spoke, women hosted. This wasn't accidental. It was imported culture. The same rules that governed English drawing rooms now governed American living rooms.
And women learned quickly. You could be seen, but not heard. Valued, but restrained. Praised, but only when compliant. If you're noticing patterns no teacher ever explained, that's exactly why this channel exists. Subscribe if you believe history should reveal the truth, not soften it. Textbooks love to say American women were freer than European women. But freedom isn't just movement. It's voice. And American women were taught something very specific. Don't embarrass the family. Don't challenge your husband. Don't speak too strongly. Don't appear dissatisfied. These weren't laws, which made them more powerful. Because when rules aren't written, you don't rebel against them. You blame yourself for breaking them. By the late 1800s and early 1900s, American women had mastered something Victorian England perfected: controlled silence. Not ignorance, not weakness. Selective speech. Say what's pleasant. Hide what's painful. Swallow what's unfair. This is why so many historical letters and diaries sound restrained. These women weren't empty. They were edited. And here's the most haunting part. By the time Victorian England officially ended, American daughters were still living by its rules, without knowing where they came from.
They didn't say, "This is how England raised women." They said, "This is how a good woman behaves." And when rules lose their origin, They become unquestionable. If this feels uncomfortably familiar, you're not imagining it. Subscribe, because the past only loosens its grip once we finally name it. When America modernized, the rules didn't disappear. They changed clothes. Women could vote, work, dress differently, but emotional restraint remained. A woman could speak as long as she didn't disturb. She could work as long as she didn't outshine. She could dream as long as she didn't demand. That wasn't freedom. That was negotiated silence. This isn't about blame. It's about inheritance. Many American families still pass down quiet instructions. Don't talk about private pain. Don't question authority. Don't air discomfort. These aren't just old-fashioned values. They're Victorian survival strategies, passed down through generations. They shaped how Americans handle emotion, marriage, dissatisfaction, truth. If understanding where we came from helps us live better now, subscribe. This channel is for thoughtful Americans who still care about truth over trend.
Victorian England didn't end. It dissolved into American respectability. Its rules didn't vanish. They became invisible. And invisible rules are the hardest to break. Because you can't rebel against what you were never told existed. This isn't a story about oppression. It's a story about quiet inheritance. About how the past doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. And if you're willing to listen closely, you can still hear Victorian England speaking in an American voice.